Hello and welcome to my channel Learn with BKK. Firstly, heartiest wishes to you on beginning your IELTS prep journey. If you're a person who's a complete beginner to IELTS, then this video lesson is for you. Not only that, if you are a person who has already taken IELTS once or twice or multiple times and not been able to get the desired band score, then this video lesson and the other video lessons that you would find on my channel would be of much use to you. My name is V. Kritika Krishna. I am a certified IELTS coach with a training experience of 15 years. And in this video lesson and the other video lessons that you would see on my channel, you're going to get useful insight and tips to IELTS. So without further ado, let's get started and understand the nuances of one of the essential communicative skills that is assessed in this exam. So the communicative skill that I'm going to talk about in this video lesson is the listening section, the listening skill. This is one of the most interesting modules of all the four that you have in IELTS. It's comparatively easier to and the most scoring one. However, a lot of times people make a lot of petty mistakes and lose their band score. So let's know, first of all, a little bit about the test. Now, this particular test is going to assess your listening skill. When I say listening, here you would be made to listen to a lot of recorded conversation and speeches. And please note that these conversation and speeches would be by native speakers of English. That means you may hear people of the UK, US, New Zealand, Australia, all the native speakers of English talking. So there is going to be a blend of different types of accent that you would listen to. The test that you're going to have here would comprise of a track, a continuous track, which is going to be of 30 minutes time. Now, since you have a provision of taking paper-based IELTS and computer-delivered test, the one difference that you would have here in the listening test especially would be once the track time is over. In the computer delivered test, you are given 2 minutes additional time, just 2 minutes additional time to review whatever you have typed on the screen. And in the paper-based IELTS, you get 10 minutes extra time to transfer your answer. So this is called transfer time in PBT. Now, ideally, when you take the computer delivered test, you have the questions on the screen and you're going to type it then and there. Whereas in paper-based test, you get the question paper and you would have a separate answer sheet, but you write on the question paper during the track time. And you're supposed to fill the final answer sheet during this 10 minutes time, which is called transfer time. The recordings which are played for you, you do not have any control over it. So please note that whatever is played once only, and nowhere during the test you can pause it or replay it again or even request to replay it. So you need to be really alert and cautious. And as you listen to the recordings, you're going to answer your questions then and there. So one important thing is that you should not be trying to memorize the content or whatever information the speakers are delivering. You need to then and there be alert, be focused, and you need to be prompt. You need to be really quick while you are responding to these questions. So in computer delivered, you're going to type it. And in paper-based exam, you're going to write your answer. Where do you write it? During the track time, you're going to write it on the question paper, so write it in any manner that you want. I mean, you can scribble, whatever be your handwriting. But eventually, when you're going to transfer your answer, please note that you should be able to read what you have written, right? So this will be one peculiar difference between computer delivered test and the paper-based test of IELTS listening section. Now, on the test day, you would have either the paper-based or computer delivered. You're going to take it along with other people. So if it is a computer delivered exam, you will have a particular system on where you will be the place where you'll be seated and you will be responding to the question. And for paper-based, when in a row people will be seated, they'll get the question paper, you'll get the answer sheet, and you're going to write using a pencil. For the listening test, and even for the reading test. And I am from Indian origin, and in my country, that is India, all the listening tests which are played, every candidate gets a headset, like you can see in on the screen here that the candidates are wearing a headphone. They'll get that and they will be listening to the tracks through that. So clarity would be there 100%. Though exceptions are there in other countries where it might be played on speaker. So know which country you belong to, and mostly for Indian test takers, it's always held using headphones. So I think there won't be any clarity issue. Otherwise, on speaker, it may be played in some of the countries that I have experienced so far from my students who have lived and taken the test in some other countries. So now let's come to some good to know points. What are some essential points that we need to know about the test? Number one, the test is divided into 4 parts. So you'll have like part 1, 2, 3, 4, and each of these parts will comprise 10 questions. Now, the total number of questions would be 40, and there is no penalty in this test. So no matter what happens, please don't leave any question. I mean, don't keep any response blank, as even if it goes wrong, it's going to be giving you a 0 rather than giving you a negative score. And whatever answers are to be fed, it will be handwritten for paper-based, like I said before, and typed for the computer-delivered test. And those of you who are taking the paper-based test, remember that your answers that you write on the answer sheet, they matter. It's not what you scribble on your question paper. So you must ensure that you're writing very neatly and clearly on the answer sheet. Then comes the format. Now, when I say that there are 4 parts, what exactly are these 4 parts? So it's part 1, where now ideally in this entire test where you listen to a continuous track of 30 minutes, these 4 parts would be 4 different tracks, and each track has a unique set of information. Part 1 is the easiest, easy for multiple reasons, but one of the reasons is that you're going to listen to 2 people talk. Now, this conversation is going to be of a social context. Like, for example, you have 2 friends talking to one another, let's say about they went to different universities and they are sharing their experience of their first day at the university. Or maybe it is about a gentleman calling a travel agent and trying to go through different travel packages that the agency offers, and trying to make up his mind which package he should take. Or possibly it's a sales rep and a customer, and they're talking about sale and purchase of a product. It could be anything. Or maybe let's say a doctor and patient communicating with one another, or maybe a patient wants an appointment with the doctor. So these kind of typical conversation that we ourselves go through in our everyday life would be played for you. But please remember, all native speakers of English will be there in those tracks. As you move forward, you go to the next part. In this part particularly, you would have one person predominantly speaking. Now, this will also be a social context. Here, more or less, it would like typically one person talking about, let's say, a product. He's telling you some points on the product. Maybe a new product has been launched in the market and he's delivering information on that. Or maybe a tour guide is talking to a bunch of tourists and telling him what they can find at a particular location. Or maybe curator of a museum is talking to the visitors of the museum, and this curator is telling them about different artifacts or things which are exhibited in the museum, and giving them some details. So part 1 and part 2, they will be simpler. There are other 2 reasons associated with it for being simpler. One is the length of the text, which you'll find to be comparatively shorter, and answers can be a little more direct here. I'll talk about this when we will be moving to the question types. Then I think you'll get more information on it. But right now, as a beginner, you should know, what will I be listening to? What can I expect on the test date? So on the test day, expect 4 different parts given to you, out of which the first and the second part would be conversation and a speech on a social context. Now, Then they'll play part 3, where there will be a discussion. So now there will be the time when you will not just listen to 1 or 2 speakers, but it can be 3, it can even be 4, up to 4 speakers can exist. And these 4 speakers, 2 to 4 speakers, may be talking about something from their professional arena, or they may be talking about something related to education. So usually the discussion can be between a professor and a student, or among a professor and a group of students, maybe 2 or 3. Usually you would get to hear that, or a person inquiring about some educational program, or maybe in the professional context. And as we move to part 4, this is going to be again one person predominantly talking, and this is going to be a lecture. Usually any kind of academic topic can be taken and that would be played. So as a test taker, you must know that this is what you can expect on the examination date. But what will be the challenges that you as a test taker might face in the exam? One of the major challenges that I have noticed people facing is accent of different speakers. So since I'm calling it a challenge, I would also like to talk about the solution, but first telling you about why it is a challenge, because people sometimes are not accustomed to the way different native speakers talk. So sometimes there can be a word or an expression or alternatives which may not be used in your own country, and when you listen to it, you may not be able to understand that. And of course, pronunciation may slightly vary. To overcome this, the best thing would be to get more and more familiar with different native speakers of English. I think this, to me, this is not a big challenge these days, because with the different OTT platforms available today, people are watching so many English language programs and shows that people have got accustomed to the way native speakers talk. So I think this is not going to be a major challenge, but if at all you fall in the category, because every type of candidate is there with different proficiency level and a different kind of command. So I would say that if you fall in the zone where you know that you are not able to understand the accent well, then the first step for you would be to get familiar. And for that, you need to watch a lot of TV programs. You can watch movies. There are so many series which are popular today. So make the most of it and work on the accent part. But now, considering the test, there are 2 other typical challenges, which even if you are good with the accent thing, you would still face, and they are speed as well as accuracy. So what do I mean by speed? This is a timed test. I said that the track is going to be for approximately 30 minutes. So the speed thing is, how quickly do you read the questions? How quickly do you understand the speaker who's talking? The speed of the speaker in the track would also vary. So sometimes they will be moderately talking in a moderate rate of speech. Sometimes they may be a little faster. So how quickly, how promptly do you understand that? That's also speed. And then your speed of writing the answers. So you're not just listening, you're reading, and you're also writing 3 in 1. So this is the speed thing. And now let's say my speed is fine. I'm able to listen, I'm able to read correctly, I'm able to even write my answers quickly. But then, are you writing those answers in the correct form? For example, if answer to a particular question is Britain, and the spelling of Britain that you wrote went wrong, so you don't get any kind of grace marks, the answer is wrong. Or you have some other accuracy related issues. Maybe you have to write amount of money and you wrote it in a different format, or possibly punctuation related error, or maybe just the fact that you heard correctly, but you wrote something which was not needed. I will address all these when we will be talking about question types and details, but this does happen. And even very good users of English may make this mistake. So typically the 3 challenges, accent, speed, accuracy, they exist. Accent, not much, but speed and accuracy do exist. And I am going to help you with the techniques to develop your speed and also accuracy. But I wanted you to be apprised of the fact that these will be the challenges. So now I move on to some techniques. In this video lesson, I'm not talking about the question types in detail, but I will familiarize you with the question types. But I would like to, before even jumping to the question type, talk about a very essential technique, which I know that it has helped many students of mine, and this must be practiced by you too. And that is using dead air of the track time. Now, you may wonder, what is dead air? Before we go to the part dead air, let's know a little bit more related to the test. When the test starts, you are made to first listen to some sample music to just check and adjust volume of your headset. And when the test begins, now the test begins, let's say, the first thing that you're going to listen to would be a set of recorded instruction. This is how the test begins. And once that instruction part is over, the audio, the track automatically takes you to the each part of the test, that is 1, 2, 3, 4 in sequence. And each part would always begin with an introduction. So it will always give you an introduction. And immediately after the introduction, now you will have a little gap in between. That's called the dead air. The track is still running, but you would not hear anybody talk. So that's called dead air. And that's the time given to you to read the questions and instruction. Not only this, when the track is over, when an entire part is over, you're also given time to check your answers. So it's like time is given to read the questions, instruction. Then the track is played again. And then for the next portion, whatever number of questions are there, you are given again time to read the instruction and question. So if there are 10 questions, you will never have all the 10 being played together until part 3. So part 1, 2, 3, you'll have this system that, let's say it is 1 to 5 and then 6 to 10, or maybe 1 to 4 and then 5 to 10. Like this, it will be played in chunks. And when that entire part is over of 10 questions, you are given a little more time to check your answers. This is what I call dead air. So how do we use this dead air? I'll talk about it in some time. Let's first know how the test begins. So I'm going to play this recording for you just to make you understand how the test starts. So assume that you have the test paper in your hand and you have it open, and this is how the test begins. Let's try to listen to it carefully. Let me play it for you.
Test 8. You will hear a number of different recordings, and you will have to answer questions on what you hear. There will be time for you to read the instructions and questions, and you will have a chance to check your work. All the recordings will be played once only. The test is in 4 sections. At the end of the test, you will be given 10 minutes to transfer your answers to an answer sheet. Now turn to section 1.
So that's how the test is, the entire test instruction is given to you. And he just said, now turn to section 1, which in the exam you will hear as part 1. Now let's even listen to that and see how the dead air starts.
Section 1. You will hear a telephone conversation between a woman who is looking for a job and a man from a company that organizes cycling holidays. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 6.
All right. I hope that this particular track, the little bit of track that I played, helped you understand that how the instructions are played. This is how the instruction begins, that it says that you have 4 different parts to the test. You need to listen to the track and answer the questions simultaneously. And at the end of the test, you'll be given 10 minutes to transfer your answer, provided it is paper-based exam. And you might have noticed that an introduction was given to part 1. And immediately after that part was over, there was time given to read some number of questions. Here in this track that I played, it says, look at question 1 to 6. Ideally, this gap time that you would have, this would be possibly about 8 to 12 seconds or so. And then when the track is played, you start answering. Post which, when the entire track is over, you get another gap, which is usually a little larger, which is 30 seconds. So you get a half a minute to check your answers. So what you ideally need to be doing in the test is don't go back and check your answers when you have this, 30 seconds. It's a huge amount of time. So use the gap time in reading the question and instructions carefully. So if you have just started, it is at part 1 and it says, look at question 1 to 6. That means you need to focus at 1 to 6 because that is what is going to be played. Likewise, when it is the end of part 1 and it says, now you have time to check your work, don't go back. That's not going to be fruitful at all because you're just going to the previous section trying to see what went wrong or whether or not you did anything correctly. It is going to be of no use. What you need to be doing is use those 30 complete seconds in reading the questions of the next part. And if you do so, you can work on the speed thing, because as you progress from part 1 to 3 and 4, you'll find that your questions will go a little lengthier and you actually need time to read them. And if you don't use this trick, then you may have challenges in comprehending the question in that short span. So never go back to checking your answers and always read the next part's question. That would be one of the test tips for you. This is going to prove very beneficial for you. The only thing is you need to apply it, right? So now let me take you to the question types, everyone. In IELTS, in the test of listening, there are 2 typical types of questions. So one is the subjective one where you're going to write some kind of word or a number. We call it fill in the blank. This fill in the blank can come in varied forms like a short note, maybe a table completion, summary completion, sentence completion, or even labeling a map or a diagram. And the other question type that we get in IELTS listening test is objective question type, so multiple choice question. Other than these 2, there is no other category. So whatever you get, it would be either writing a word or a number or choosing a letter. These are the 2 typical question types. Let me show you the example. So this, what you see on the screen, is an example of short notes. Now you can see it says section 2, that is part 2, question 11 to 20. We can see questions 11 to 16 on the screen at the moment. And you can see that there are independent, sentences, but they are not full sentences. They are short notes. And the question says, complete the notes below, write 1 word and or a number. So these are your questions where you have to fill in a particular word. Similar to this is table completion. The only difference is that it comes in a tabular data, right? And you can see question 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, so on and so forth. And you have to write whatever is the appropriate word or a number. And this is summary completion, which is slightly different because here you can see that there is a big paragraph which is given to you with blanks. And usually this kind of a question type is more visible in section 3 and section 4. And the difficulty arises here in the fact that there will be a lot of paraphrasing which is done. So you see a paraphrase content in front of you. The speaker will never read out the same paragraph. So if there are many popular fad diets nowadays, he may not be saying the same line. He'll be telling you that different type of diets are now found nowadays. So he will change his sentence. He will mold it in his form. This is summary of that. So please don't have an expectation that he's going to read the tape script to you. He's not going to do that. So even here you can see that it says write no more than 2 words. So every question will always have an instruction connected to it. And this is sentence completion, where you can see independent full sentences, which we need to complete, compared to short notes, where the sentences are not full sentences, but like a note form. And lastly, there can be label a map or a diagram like this or like this, which can come in the examination. So these are typical types of fill in the blank, and the objective question, which are found to be trickier for many people owing to different reasons, which we will discuss later. But yes, so this is how it looks like. So you can see that there is a very long question sentence. There are 3 options. In another question, 3 options. And it says choose the correct letter A, B, or C. That means only one answer is right. So when you will be taking the listening test, this can be a typical question where you might face a challenge because it has a lot of information to read. So the speed thing that I was telling you, if you don't manage your time well, you'll not be able to read the question properly. So we'll discuss what else we can do to make this process better. But let's get familiar a little more. I would now like to share a few more techniques. What can be the right approach for you when you are tackling questions? Rest, we will talk in detail about how to do short notes question, or if it is labeling the map or the diagram or MCQs, how we go through it in another video lesson. But in totality, what is an approach that you need to follow? You need to be aware of this test pattern. Number one, especially now that you know that, okay, the test starts with instruction, then the test, one section is introduced, then I'll get a gap, then the track will be played, then I'll get another gap, then the track will continue, then I'll get another gap. You should be aware of this pattern. And also know that part 1, 2, 3, only in these 3 parts you have your track being played in 2 chunks. But when you go to part 4, it's always all 10 questions together. A lot of people don't know this, so they mess up when they're taking the test. So you don't be that test taker who doesn't know this fact. And know what are the question types. So there are only 2. And then we progress to their techniques. Then the most important tip is that you must read the question carefully. If you're partially reading and you have a partial understanding of the question, no matter how well your listening skills are, you will definitely mark the wrong answer. So you have to pay more attention to the question first. And like I said, for the speed thing, use dead air wisely and never ever ignore instructions. So when you're reading, when you're looking at the question, either on the screen or on the paper, you have to look at the instructions as well. A lot of people leave that. So if you remember when I was showing the previous slides to you, every set of question has one instruction. So if it is fill in the blank, it will be word limit. If it is multiple choice, the number of responses that you need to choose will be marked. Ideally, there is one answer per question, but there are certain questions where you have to mark 2 options or 3 options that will clearly be printed. So check that. Sometimes we make mistake in that. We think, oh, he said A as well as B, let me write both. But it just says choose the correct letter. That means only one answer is right. But when it says choose 2, which 3, that means I need to pick those number of responses, and I am a candidate who writes only one answer. So if it is a 2-mark question, I'll get partial scoring. If it is just a 1-mark question, I'll get 0 because I didn't mark the other correct answer. And answer then and there. Do not waste your time on one question. When I say answer then and there, you have to be very quick. So when the speaker says something, I have seen, from my experience, I've seen a lot of people holding their pencils and they're waiting whether they should write it or not. So write it then and there. And if you don't get it for any reason whatsoever, please move to the next question. But yes, eventually write or type something. Don't leave it blank. Like I said to you before, that no response should be left blank. And follow the speaker. See, the questions will come in the track is designed in such a way that it is giving you the answers in the order of the questions. So if it is 1, then 2, then 3. So this makes your process a little easier because you don't have to keep scanning. Do I need to look at 1 or 10? It will come in an order. So follow the speaker. And as you progress, there will be a lot of times when you might get confused whether, okay, he talked about question number 31, but is he at 32 or has he reached 34? This happens because sometimes the speaker gives certain information which is really useless. He's just eating up your time and he's going to gradually reach to the next question. And sometimes he makes the transition and he moves there. So a lot of test takers are not able to do so because the speed goes faster as they progress to section 3 or in section 4. So you should be a smart test taker who knows that transition. When does that transition happen? And a lot of alertness is needed. I will discuss how you can identify the transition areas. I will discuss that, but not in this video lesson, but when I'll be talking about multiple choice separately and fill in the blank separately. So all in all, whatever I've explained to you in this video tutorial was the entire format of the test and some essential tips which can help you to start your preparation. I'm sure that you might have a couple of questions as well. So do feel free to put it in the comment section. I would try to address it as early as possible. And stay tuned. We'll be meeting again with another video lesson where we'll be talking about fill in the blank question, how to attempt that, and especially if there's labeling a map or a diagram, how do we go ahead with that, and how do we solve the confusion, the puzzling question, which is multiple choice. When I often see people telling me that, Kritika, he said all the 4 options. What do I do? Kritika, he said all the 3. What do I do? So I will address that in another video lesson. Due to time constraint, I'm not continuing it further. So stay tuned. I'll be meeting you once again. Go through the video lesson again, make your own notes and absorb the techniques that I have shared with you here today, and try to practice them, put them more into practice with different test papers. And till then, I would just like to say that that's all from me here today. Happy learning to everybody out there. See you in next video tutorial. Bye-bye.